History does not move in a straight line. It lurches, collides, breaks, and rebuilds. Every few generations, the world hits a point where powers don't simply disagree. They smash into one another with such force, the aftershocks reshape borders, economies, cultures, and the human story itself. These collisions come with thunder wars that burn cities, revolutions that topple thrones, rivalries that split continents. Tonight, we ride that shockwave through the turning points where world powers clashed and where humanity was remade. Think of the ancient world, immense empires pressing outward, smaller polities resisting, and then a moment when disparate peoples stood shoulder to shoulder and changed the map of civilization. Persia in the 5th century BCE was the nearest thing the ancient world had to a superpower. Its armies swept from Egypt to the Indus. Its treasury paid for mercenaries and satraps. Greece, by contrast, was a scatter of city-states. Athens, Sparta, Thebes, squabbling endlessly. Yet when Persia came, Athens and Sparta and their rivals did something extraordinary. They joined forces. At Marathon, a comparatively tiny Athenian contingent routed a Persian force several times its size. At Thermopylae, a handful of Spartans held the pass against overwhelming numbers long enough to echo through millennia. At Salamis, Greek commanders turned geography into a weapon and destroyed the invading fleet. Those victories didn't just save city-states, they preserved a fragile breathing space where democracy, philosophy, and drama could take root and grow. A collision with an empire birthed the foundations of Western political identity. Fast forward a few centuries, and the Mediterranean itself became the arena for another titanic struggle: Rome versus Carthage. Rome was a relentlessly expanding republic with near inexhaustible manpower. Carthage was a maritime, mercantile powerhouse, master of the sea. The Second Punic War delivered spectacle and strategy in equal measure. Hannibal Barca, marching war elephants across the Alps, remains one of history's most audacious maneuvers. He annihilated Roman armies at Trebia, Lake Trasimene, and Cannae. Cannae, especially, stands as a tactical masterclass, an entire Roman force enveloped and destroyed in a single day. You know, Rome's resilience really turned strategy on its head. Instead of constantly battling Hannibal in Italy, Rome made a bold move. They struck at the very heart of Carthage's political and economic power, which forced Hannibal to return home. At the Battle of Zama, the balance shifted dramatically. Carthage fell, and Rome secured its place as the dominant power in the Mediterranean. They set laws, languages, and infrastructures that, believe it or not, still echo in our cities today. That shadow fell in the 1930s and 1940s. World War II was not a simple clash of armies, it was a rupture of moral imagination. Totalitarian visions in Germany, Italy, and militarist Japan collided with allied coalitions across oceans. Cities burned in the Blitz, empires fell. The scope of violence escalated until the bomb became a final arbiter. Hiroshima and Nagasaki closed one chapter in a flash of nuclear light, but at unimaginable human cost. The war ended with roughly 75 to 80 million dead, entire infrastructures razed, and the political center of gravity shifting decisively toward two new global titans. Those titans, the United States and the Soviet Union, did not face off with armies in Europe, so much as with ideology, technology, and proxy conflict. The Cold War split the world into two competing visions: capitalism and liberal pluralism versus communism and state command. It was fought in classrooms, in laboratories, in satellite launches, and in brutal civil wars, where superpowers supplied weapons and advice. Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan. These were theaters where global competition was waged by local proxies. Nuclear arsenals hovered like a constant threat. The Cuban Missile Crisis came closest to precipitating a planetary conflagration. Yet the Cold War also accelerated human ingenuity. Rockets, computers, satellites, innovations born of rivalry that spin through our lives today. When the Soviet Union finally collapsed in 1991, it marked the end of one epic of collisions, but not the end of collision itself. The Middle East illustrated how the legacies of empires and 20th century power politics collide with religion, nationalism, and modern statehood. After World War I, borders were often drawn by distant powers who knew little of local dynamics. That friction has reverberated through the 20th and 21st centuries. Arab-Israeli wars, revolutions, the Gulf conflicts, the invasion of Iraq, the Syrian catastrophe. Outside powers have repeatedly found themselves entangled, supporting allies, backing factions, and intervening when their strategic interests demanded it. The consequence is a tapestry of unresolved grievances, refugee flows, and regional rivalries that continue to shape global politics. As the 21st century arrived, the shape of collision changed again. China's economic transformation across 4 decades is honestly one of the most consequential shifts in global power. A nation that once endured humiliation and dislocation, engineered, well, an economic miracle through industrial policy, export-led growth, and massive infrastructure investment. From manufacturing hub to technological challenger, China's rise has turned the global order into a multipolar negotiation table. Trade disputes, industrial competition, and strategic rivalry over regions like the South China Sea and the Indo-Pacific have become modern arenas where collision is not measured only in tanks, but in tariffs, technology bans, and supply chain decoupling. The Belt and Road Initiative stitched new dependencies across continents, and global institutions adjusted to a reality where American supremacy is no longer uncontested. Meanwhile, Russia's post-Soviet trajectory shows, another face of collision. Recovering power after a chaotic transition, Russia reasserted itself geopolitically in the 21st century. Crimea in 2014 and the large-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022 signaled a return to hard geopolitics in Europe, and reminded the world that even after the Cold War's end, territorial ambitions and spheres of influence can still erupt into conventional conflicts. Those moves provoked sanctions, shifted alliances, and reminded policymakers that old dynamics, military power, resource leverage, and political will remain central to how states interact. If wars over territory and ideology defined earlier epochs, the next great collisions may be shaped by technology and resources. Artificial intelligence, cyber capabilities, quantum computing, and space control are new vectors of competition. The ability to dominate information flows, to harness advanced computing, or to secure critical minerals could determine economic and military advantage. Climate change and resource scarcity, water stress, arable land loss, shifting migration patterns offer another axis of potential conflict. The Arctic, once frozen and marginal, is opening up and becoming a stage for strategic competition over shipping lanes and energy. Space itself is no longer a domain of wonder only. It's a strategic frontier where satellites, debris, and orbit control matter for national security. When powers collide, the consequences ripple through everything. Borders redraw, institutions reform, technologies leap forward, and ordinary lives are transformed. Collisions bring destruction and displacement. They also, paradoxically, accelerate innovation, from medical advances to communications infrastructure, born of necessity or competitive pressure. Empires fall, new states form. Cultural exchanges, often violent at first, seed hybrid identities, new trade networks, and reconfigured alliances. History's collisions are not just textbook chapters. They are blueprints and warnings. They show what happens when ambition outpaces accommodation, when technological leaps outstrip ethical guardrails, when institutions fail to manage competition. But they also show resilience. Human societies reform, rebuild, and sometimes produce more inclusive orders from the wreckage. The lesson is both humbling and urgent. We are shaped by impacts, and we also have agency to steer them. So what will the next collision look like? That remains unwritten. But the forces are visible: technology, resources, and human ambition. The choices we make now, whether to compete with restraint or escalate with abandon, will determine whether the next collision breaks us or redefines our era more constructively. If this tour through history's great clashes intrigued you, hit like, subscribe, and comment which collision you want a full deep dive on next. Because the past doesn't only explain where we came from, it maps the lines along which the future will collide.